So you want to learn Greek, but all this is very overwhelming to you? Well, you're right, but also it's easier than you think. And today I want to make your life easier by explaining some aspects of Greek and make things more understandable. Whether you're a beginner or more experienced, this video will explore a lot of different parts in Greek and hopefully will give you some insight as what to do and some things to look out for. Alright, let's get into it. First things first, we need to talk about the alphabet. While there are a lot of differences between the Latin alphabet and the Greek alphabet, they also share a lot of similarities, which can make some things easier to learn. Though the good thing with the Greek alphabet is what you see is what you get, meaning once you learn the alphabet, you will be able to read everything. Of course, not understand it, but you will be able to read it. Apart from the main alphabet, we also have letter combinations. These letter combinations are made from letters from the alphabet, pretty much combined together, introducing new sounds and also already existing ones. The letters of the alphabet are 24 and the combinations are around 12. So before doing anything in Greek, I would absolutely recommend you to study first the alphabet, learn it well, then learn the combinations as they're very common, and then you can do whatever you want. So a small fun fact about the Greek alphabet. You see these 6 letters? Well, they have the exact same pronunciation. And you will ask me, why? Why do we need 6 of them? Well, it wasn't always like this. In ancient Greek, actually, these 6 letters had different pronunciation, a little bit different from each other, and they served a little bit of a different purpose. However, with the simplification of Greek, all these now have the exact same sound. However, grammatically and with spelling, you use them in different places, of course. I know this can be a little annoying while learning, but you will get used to it. Alright, let's talk about grammar for a second. Grammar is what makes Greek challenging and sometimes annoying to deal with. In Greek, we love endings, as we call them. The ending of a word is an indication that this word is either a noun, an adverb, an adjective, a verb, etc. So basically, the ending will most likely indicate what that word is meant to be used for. These endings are very specific, and they also have very specific rules attached to them, which is a good thing because there is a structure that you can learn. Of course, there are exceptions to this, but for the most part, it stays consistent. The plural form of a word is depicted by its ending. And speaking of plural, if you want to use formal speech, simply use the plural form of that word, as we also use it to be polite. Even though there is only one person, we still want to use it. And now, as you might have seen, Greek is a gendered language, and it has 3 genders to be exact: masculine, feminine, and neuter. And pretty much every word has a gender. Now, I need to stress that the genders are pretty much random. What do I mean by that? For us, the wall is masculine, the chair is feminine, and the table is neuter. Genders are accompanied by endings, as we said before, but also articles and cases. Now, just like a lot of other European languages, Greek uses cases, and these are very vital to sentence structure. So it's very important for you to learn them early on, so you can understand Greek sentences a lot easier. For example, one of the cases is nominative, and its job is to indicate the subject in a sentence. Last thing I want to talk about in this category is articles, as they connect with all of the above. In English, as a definite article, you only have the word the. In Greek, you have different ones depending on the gender, the case, and if you're using plural form or not. In comparison to English, we have a much more specific system with a lot more articles that you need to learn. Alright, let's talk vocabulary now. Vocabulary in Greek is pretty much just like every other language. However, when you're learning a new vocabulary word, I would absolutely recommend you to pair it with its correct article, so you get more practice in genders and articles at the same time while learning a new word. It's going to be much easier to kind of grasp the system if you do it that way. So how should you learn vocabulary though? Well, you can definitely use apps such as Anki, Duolingo, and Drops. You can pick one, they work definitely for words, but don't completely rely on them. Another way I recommend you to do is by using flashcards. So what I mean by this, you want to learn the word from the flashcard, write it down, and put it into sentences. And that way, you can see how the word works in a more realistic scenario. Of course, as much realistic as it can be. That's a trick that I like to do, and it helps me a lot learning new words when I learn a new language. Sadly, resources in Greek are a little limited, there is not that much variety, so I'm trying to create Greek learning material, starting from flashcards as I mentioned. These flashcards can also be found in the link in the description, and you can buy them for a very low price if you want to support me, of course. Also, feel free to give me feedback on what Greek learning material you would like to see made. Last thing I want to touch on is verbs and conjugations. How do we do it? How does it work? First of all, we don't have the infinitive form like other languages do. The base form of a verb is actually the first person conjugation in the present tense. This right here would be our present tense, and the one on the top would be the first person conjugation, so our base form or infinitive verb as you would call it. Every verb in Greek has a different conjugation, or ending as we like to call it, depending on what you're trying to say. Most tenses in Greek have first, second, and third person singular, and also first, second, and third person plural. Now, the third person has pronouns such as he, she, and it, and the first and second person have I and you pronouns. Now for the plural, what happens when it's the he, she, and it part? Well, basically, we have he, but plural, basically, or she, but plural, and it, but plural as well. Speaking of verbs, the verb to be is extremely irregular, and it's going to be one of the first things you're going to learn. The conjugations of this specific verb have nothing to do with the rest of the conjugations of normal verbs. There are very specific rules on how to conjugate a verb. Usually the conjugations are done by changing the ending of a word. However, some tenses, usually the past ones, require to add a prefix in the word to complete the conjugation. All these are rules you can learn. However, among all these rules, there are a lot of irregular verbs as well. So let's talk about them. Now, as for these verbs, you don't have much choice but to memorize them, sadly. However, some of them can be grouped together and memorized as a group because they're very similar with each other. But that's about it. One thing I forgot to mention is that sometimes you will see the same Greek letter written differently. Here's an example. These two letters are exactly the same. Now, don't be too scared. The differences usually in writing are very small, and Greek letters have actually a few ways to properly write them. Don't worry though, the differences aren't too big, and with a little bit of practice you will definitely get used to it. And with that, I will finish up this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this video helped answer some of your questions and gave you a little bit of a better understanding about Greek. I could honestly talk about Greek for hours, all the different rules that come into play, how the language works. But I definitely wanted to not tire you too much, give you an idea of the fundamentals, and answer some of your questions. Thank you a lot again. I will keep making these style of videos, and of course, please do give me feedback on what you would like to see, on what you would like to be improved on, and yeah, that's all pretty much. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and I will see you in the next one. Yes, us.